Hey, good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Did you have a good weekend? I had a terrific weekend. I got to see my family this weekend. Had a nice dinner last night in the city. So that was terrific. It is Holy Week. And in fact, today is Holy Monday. And there's an interesting little tidbit there. I had to look up what Holy Monday was. And one of the things that happened on Holy Monday is that I guess Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers. And what we're going to discuss today, I think I can draw sort of a parallel. I don't know if I want to strain to make that metaphor, but you'll see it for yourself. The thing I wanted to talk about today is the fact that last week I probably had a half a dozen people ask me if I saw the Oprah Winfrey special. And I didn't. I still have not. Something in me is kind of resistant to it. I'm not sure exactly what, but I did read about it. And apparently, Oprah has been taking one of these weight loss drugs. Now, by the way, let me just tell you up front, I am conflicted talking about this subject because I've touched on it many times. And the reason I'm conflicted is because I don't want to give it too much power, right? The more you speak about something, even if you're speaking negatively, all press is good press. So I am hesitant to speak about it, but I am going to because I think it's instructive. And I think that there are things that people can take away from it. But that's what the special was about. Oprah has been taking one of the drugs. She won't say which one. And apparently, she wanted to make her case for the benefits of the drugs. And her case essentially is that obesity is biological. Now, let's not forget that Oprah is a principal in Weight Watchers. She owns a piece of Weight Watchers, or at least she did. Now, apparently, since she came out, she's turning over her stock to some kind of a charity. But she wanted to say that, she should not feel ashamed for doing something that's going to address the biological aspect of her obesity and that it's helping her. And she doesn't want others to feel ashamed. And she interviewed people, mostly the people who manufacture these drugs. It's been a very weird thing. Like, I don't get with the conspiracy theories and, the stuff about the media and all of that, but it does seem like the media has been in lockstep. And maybe it's because obviously they get a lot of advertising revenue from these drug companies. But apparently, in this special, she interviewed spokespeople for these drug companies, people who are not going to say anything bad. They downplayed the side effects of these various medications. And of course, the medications I'm speaking of are Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro, etc., Zepbound, which I guess is the newest one. So it's interesting what was presented because I feel like, from what it sounds like, she wasn't coming as a journalist. She was coming with somebody who had a point to make, and that's what the show was about. Apparently, there was not a panel of pro and anti. It was Oprah merely extolling the benefits or the supposed benefits. Now, Weight Watchers, which has not been Weight Watchers for a couple of years, they shifted a couple of years ago to call themselves WW. And I guess the reason that they were doing that was because the numbers were down and they were embracing wellness. They were talking about a broader topic. Weight Watchers, in my opinion, has never been about wellness. It started back in 1963. Back then, the obesity problem wasn't terrible in our country. It was anywhere between 10 and 14%. But there was this lady who started, her name was Jean Nidetch, and she figured that a support group would be helpful for people. And since then, obviously, they've made some changes. They've adjusted to the times, I guess, in various ways, and they've adjusted to the marketplace. And I guess that's their job as well, to adjust to the marketplace. That is the job of a good business. More on that in a bit. Hey, by the way, if you're going to watch this later on, you can do that. A lot of people are confused about that. You can watch this if you're watching it and it's recorded. It's still valid, okay? If you ask me a direct question, I won't be able to do it right away, but you can certainly do that now. But if you're watching, if you just came on, we are talking about the Oprah special, and we are also talking about Weight Watchers and what they're doing. So it's a really interesting story. So they've embraced Weight Watchers, or WW as they're now called, has embraced these types of medications. And it's really interesting, kind of the spin on it. And I got to tell you, I am a bit of two minds on the whole Weight Watchers thing, right? On the one hand, I feel like they are sellouts. They had a particular approach, they had a particular philosophy. Again, I never thought it was the greatest program in the world. I never thought it had to do with health. What they did have a couple of strengths. One was the support of a group. The other was accountability. They kind of made it a game, right, with their point system. But I never thought it was the strongest program because people would laugh. They would have their points in M&Ms and brownies, and that would be it for the day. So it was never really about getting healthier, in my opinion. But now they definitely made a shift. And when they explain the shift, it's in very high-minded language. All about how yes, now they can address the biological aspect. There is a brain-based aspect, and they can do something that. And here's a great corporate buzzword. Here's one of these words that we're hearing a lot today: food noise. Now they can help people with food noise, right? And that's one of the benefits, supposedly, of these shots is that people aren't constantly, getting those cravings. They're not. It's not in their head all the time. The refrigerator is not calling to them, beckoning them until they have to give in. And so now there is a program within Weight Watchers whereby, for a mere $99 more a month, you have access to telehealth services, and you can have a telehealth appointment with a doctor who can prescribe you these medications. And what's really cool about it also is that Weight Watchers, and I say cool, right? But it's smart. What's really smart about it is that Weight Watchers, for people who want to get off of it, they can help with that. Or they can help support people in a different way, right? The people who are on these medications have different challenges, both physical and, I guess, emotional challenges. So Weight Watchers can continue to support them. So there's a reason, even if you're on the drugs, to stay with Weight Watchers, even if you haven't used their allied telehealth services. There's still a reason to stay with them because it's a different type of support. So really, in reading about it, like I said, I was of two minds. It is a brilliant pivot that they're making right now. And the question is, and something I'm dealing with myself is, well, what duty do they have to stick to their previous philosophical approach? They have no duty. They are a very large business, a very large corporation. They have made the decision. Now, of course, they're couching it like, they're the greatest things in the world. And of course, they're doing it only for the benefit of their clientele. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe they're sincere. I personally think that there's going to be a huge blowback against these types of medications. And it may not matter because people are willing to make that deal, right? People know that drugs have consequences. At this point, they can't really turn around and be victims. Now, There are no long-term studies on these types of medications. Nobody really knows what happens in the long term. But if you don't know, if you're an adult and you don't know by now that medications have certain consequences, that they all have side effects. And if you haven't done your due diligence to investigate the known side effects of these medications, even though they are sometimes downplayed by the people who prescribe them, well, that's on you. I mean, caveat emptor. So it's a really brilliant stroke by Weight Watchers, and they don't have a duty to not make that pivot. I mean, I'm defending them as far as a business, you're supposed to give people what they want. What people want is a quick and easy solution, an apparent one, and they're able to do that. So, although there's a part of me that says they're huge sellouts, and how could they do that after all these years? Remember, they've had opportunities to jump into drugs before, to embrace them in the past, and they never have. Why now? Well, I would say that it's a combination between their numbers going down over the years and the numbers of the medications are going up. In the past, only a very small percentage of people have used weight loss medications. Why is that, you may ask? Well, weight loss medications have always had problems. Years ago, there was something called fen-phen. It was a combination of two medications. And of course, they discovered that people who were taking it had a much higher degree of, or a much higher rate of heart disease. So there wasn't a lot of people, traditionally, a lot of people do not take these medications. But now they are predicting that 10% of the US population will be taking one of these types of medications by 2030. And I personally think we've become so calloused to the side effects of medications and so kind of indoctrinated into this idea that all of our problems are biological problems, that it won't matter. Although there's going to be blowback, I think a lot of people will ignore the blowback and say, okay, I'm willing to take these risks. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen like fen-phen, where fen-phen was taken off of the market, or at least it's not used in combination. Now I guess they do use one. Fen-phen was a combination of two drugs. Now they do use one of these drugs. Still, they have been prescribing one of these drugs for weight loss. So the whole thing is just a really fascinating study in people. Now, let me talk for a minute about this idea of embracing the fact that weight loss is largely biological. It is. No one can deny that there's a biological component to weight loss. No one can deny that there's a hormonal component. I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time. It's always been the case. Yet the fact is that in the early 80s and before that, where obesity was 10 to 14% of the population, and now it's like close to 70% of the adult population, or at least that's weight loss plus being overweight. And going up still, even though this has been known about for a long time. I mean, what's really changed? Has human biology changed? No. Now, if WW was so concerned about biology, was so concerned about their clientele, wouldn't they look into the reasons that obesity has become so prevalent and how biology has become so screwed up such that 70% of adults in this country are overweight or obese? Like, why not address it at the root cause or try? It may or may not be possible, but why aren't they talking about that? We know what these medications do. These medications are basically hormones, or they mimic hormones. And by changing the hormones, at least the semaglutides, right? That's the ones that we know about, semaglutides, or we hear about most often, Ozempic and I believe Mounjaro and Wegovy, but I could be wrong. There's a few of these different types, but they have similar ideas. And the idea is that it affects insulin production in the body. And by doing that, it causes a few things. One is it prevents the body, the digestive tract, it slows down the emptying of the digestive tract. Well, that doesn't sound like fun. That causes constipation. In extreme cases, that can cause other problems, pancreatitis, that can cause a paresis, right? Or a lack of functioning really of the digestive tract where stuff gets stuck in there. It's pretty common that people get nauseous. Those are some of nausea is kind of a lighter one, right? Nausea, constipation. Of course, taken to an extreme, that's really bad. And it also causes things like dehydration, loss of muscle. Okay, so these are some of the things. And of course, you have to be on it your whole life, which is what they love about it the most. If they could make one of these pills where you would take it just one time and you'd be done, I think they wouldn't do it. Or they would do it and charge like, $1 million. But this way, they can get several $100s a month forever, or for the duration of a person's life. There doesn't seem to be a plan to get people off of it. Now, various companies have talked about a plan like that, including WW. Hell, I've talked about it, having a protocol for that. And maybe it's something I'll do. But I'll tell you this, some people have asked me, hey, why don't you see if you can get the shots here? And I've just said no. I mean, at some point, you have to decide what you stand for. And I'm not trying to be like melodramatic or heroic or anything, but I've been talking about one thing for 10 years. I've been talking about, I'm a chiropractor, I mean, for longer than that. So, what do you stand for? I mean, you can't be all things to all people. Are you about natural healthcare, or are you not? And there is such a thing as, being integrative, but no, that wouldn't be the case. I would close down before that, you know. Interesting anecdote. I have one client who just did the program. He lost a tremendous amount of weight. Uh, Not a tremendous amount. He didn't have a tremendous amount of lose, but the results are very dramatic, right? And he saw a bunch of his buddies at a convention a few weeks ago, and they said, "Oh, you're on Ozempic, aren't you?" And he insisted he wasn't, and they insisted he was. They thought he was lying. It's become such a trend, such a cause celeb, that if you meet somebody these days who has lost a lot of weight, the assumption is that they must have done Ozempic or another semaglutide. It couldn't be natural. It's almost like if someone had a great year in baseball in the 1990s, it was because steroids, right? I mean, or you don't know it, but that's the assumption. And that's where we are now with this stuff. Okay. So again, I got this one hand and other hand thing going on, right? On the one hand, I think Oprah and Weight Watchers has sold out. On the other hand, they never professed a commitment to their old philosophy. They are a corporation, and as a corporation, they're supposed to give people what they want. And right now, this is apparently what people want. They've stopped fighting what could have been the enemy and they've embraced it. So, presumably, they are going to get more business and they are going to raise their bottom line. And that, forgive me if I sound cynical, but that is their priority. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with it. They're not doing anything illegal. All right, these are legal medications. So kudos, sort of, for that brilliant stroke on their part. And I guess we're going to see what happens with that. I guess that's it for today for our discussion today. Obviously, we don't stand for that. Uh, our approach is different. We believe that people have to get healthier in order to basically create a better engine whereby the body will burn fat. That's our approach. That's where we're coming from. It's definitely more holistic. And our results, I believe, numbers wise, you'd probably have to get a bunch of mathematicians to vet that. But I know our results. I mean, I know that we had one study that showed that the average person lost 26.2 pounds in 9 weeks. Most of it was in the first 6 weeks. And the studies on those medications say that you lose about 15% of your body weight in 68 weeks, right? So think about that. A 250-pound person, if they lost 15% of their body fat, they would lose about 37 pounds in 68 weeks, which is like what, 14 months? So I will take our results over anybody's, and it's an all natural approach. Uh, so that's going to be it for today. Have a great day. Listen, uh, opening day is coming up. We already had it kind of last week with the Dodgers, but they were in South Korea, so it really doesn't count. But the rest of the teams are opening up this week. We have March Madness going on. It should stop raining one of these days, and the weather's beautiful. It's spring. Get out there, move around, and let me know if you need anything. All right, see you next week.